In this video, I'm talking about autism diagnosis and the reasons why there are more boys diagnosed than girls. Coming up. Hey guys, welcome back to TheAspieWorld. My name is Dan. I have autism, ADHD, OCD and dyslexia. I make weekly videos on autism, so if you are new around here and you'd like to learn more, consider subscribing by hitting that notification bell to be alerted when I upload videos. And if you're watching over on Facebook, be sure to give this page a like and a follow to see daily videos from me. Right, guys. In this video, I'm discussing some shocking reasons why there are more males diagnosed than females and all of the kind of nonsense that goes with it. So stick around to the end of the video to get the full picture. Hey guys, before you get started with the video, I just want to let you know I have a free autism web class which is designed to help you achieve daily life tasks for people on the spectrum. It will be in the card above here and a link in the description. Okay, on with the video. Hey, welcome back everybody. I just want to say hey and how's it going? Hope you're enjoying your current day and hope this video helps you in some way and helps you feel kind of, I don't know, connected to YouTube and me and have friends and all that kind of cool stuff. Anyway, I have a question for you. Are you watching this video because you're on the autism spectrum, or are you watching this video to learn more about it for somebody else? I'd love to know, so please pop it in a comment down below. I read and respond to every single comment, so I'd love to actually talk to you and have a conversation. Okay guys, so autism diagnosis. There are lots of people who are diagnosed with autism, right? You know, there's 1 in 60 people in the United States, or I think it's 1 in 59 now, who are diagnosed with an autism spectrum condition, and 1 in 100 in the United Kingdom. I mean, that is a lot of people. And more interesting on that, I'd like to talk about the demographics of people on the male to female kind of ratio, or the boy and girl kind of ratio. No like mystery to know that there are girls who are on the spectrum and there are guys who are on the spectrum, but what is the kind of the ratio we're looking at here? Because if you think about it, I know way more boys than I do girls who are diagnosed with autism, and it's kind of like a, well, why? How come? Isn't there a 50-50? And absolutely there isn't at the moment. The diagnosis is more favored towards boys. So basically this is the current most up-to-date statistic estimate, okay? It used to be that it was a 2-to-1 ratio, so 2 to 1, so male to female 2 to 1, and then it's the most up-to-date one is 3 to 1. So males are, like, you know, 3 times more likely to have an autism spectrum condition than females, according to these statistics. Now, I believe personally that these statistics only go off the fact that they are using kind of diagnostic criteria that is old. And what I mean by that is, in 1940, in 1944, 1943, there was a guy called Hans Asperger who was one of the kind of leading field members of creating the autism spectrum kind of diagnostic criteria and all that kind of stuff. And then also in 1943, Leo Kanner was also doing similar work, actually identical work, but they were in 2 different parts of the world. But they kind of got to this consensus where Hans Asperger actually created a document that said that women couldn't be on the spectrum, or girls didn't display any traits of people on the spectrum. Now this is like a really old rubbish study. That's not the truth, that's just what he had kind of analysed at that time, because he was looking at a very small snapshot and his control group probably wasn't as broad as it should have been. Now, for Hans Asperger to come up with that, he then published that paper, and in 1981, Lorna Wing, who was another kind of like expert on this kind of stuff, she released another, you know, ratios of autism sex ratios. So there's been this whole kind of like misconception based on Hans Asperger's original findings back in like the 1940s. Now, taking that into consideration and going forward, you now have a complete diagnostic breakdown assessment criteria that is catered towards males and not females, which is kind of weird, right? But it does answer the question, well, why are more males diagnosed than females? So that is technically the diagnostic reason why, but there's more to it than that. The way autism displays itself in males and females is actually different. It has the same characteristics, so there are criteria like the triad of impairment, and there are diagnostic criteria that that you have to hit to obviously be diagnosed, which is exactly how a diagnosis process is kind of evaluated. But in terms of how males are, you know, how females are, how they display themselves, males display differently to females. And what I mean by this is there is a huge thing called masking. Now, masking is something that autistic people do to kind of almost like a workaround to fit into neurotypical environments. So if you have an autistic kid and they go to a you know, a neurotypical school and they're trying to fit in, they'll try to mask some of their issues. You know, they'll try and hide some of their, like a workaround really. They'll try and hide some of their traits and try and kind of be as fitting in as possible. And that masking then can have like a profound effect on their life, because if they are not diagnosed at that moment in time, and then they go for a diagnosis, and then they're masking, this could cause huge issues. Now, with males, they don't mask as much as females because the way that the brains work, I have no idea. I'm not a neuroscientist or a psychologist, but this is typically what I can understand from the data I've read, that girls are more prone to masking and therefore are harder to diagnose correctly, because at the time that they are being assessed, maybe they're masking and you can't really see exactly all of the issues and the symptoms or the criteria characteristics that present themselves at that moment in time. And because of that, then you have this gaping gap, this kind of almost deficit area where you have like boys who just, you know, display their behavior and their traits just as they are, but then you have girls who are more complex. And then when you're trying to diagnose them, because all of your criteria was set up to analyze boys anyway, and you're applying the boys' criteria to the girls are masking, the criteria isn't set for females, so it's flipped on its head. It's completely wrong, it's backwards, and it really freaks me out that actually happens. So this actually begs the question, you know, is it a fact that there are more males with an autism spectrum condition than are females? I would say no. I believe that, you know, look at the population of the planet. There are slightly more females than males. I think it's like 51% females to 49% males, and so there are going to be more females typically on the planet, and so that means that there are probably more chances there's going to be more females than males who actually have an autism spectrum condition. But then again, so is it a male, you know, is it a male versus female thing? Is it a sex thing? So the ratios of sex don't really add up. The ratios are just showing you what the current diagnostic criteria is. So do I think that they are wrong? I absolutely do, and I think that more females will be more commonly diagnosed now because of the new stuff that's happening. So ever since this kind of huge issue had happened, you know, in the mid-90s, there was a bunch of kind of like you know, people saying that like there was very little women, again, you know, diagnosed, and little girls weren't diagnosed as much as little boys, and so there was this big huge thing, and it's always been this big debate. But in terms of how we are now, people like the National Autistic Society actually have training courses and stuff provided so that they can actually, you know, offer this training to the doctors and the psychotherapists so that they can actually now diagnose autism effectively, efficiently, and correctly in females without missing out this whole gap. But understanding and learning new things like masking and the characteristics of females and why they are is going to help a lot as well. And I think like females doing more outreach programs and doing more like personal kind of vloggy type content so that like more people can listen more. I think that's another issue as well, is that the medical community or the people who are diagnosing aren't interested in listening, or they haven't up until this point listened to females and haven't looked at that kind of, you know, why are they kind of took it at face value and said, okay, well, there's more boys than girls, but like, why? You know, ask yourself that question, why? So look into that a bit more. Why don't you like dig deep and you know, think, well, why is there more females to males, you know, or why isn't there more females to males, and why are there more males than females who are diagnosed with an autism spectrum condition? Regardless, the fact of the matter is those people are still struggling, and the thing that kind of comes out of this really, you know, if you think about this, if the ratio is 3 to 1, that means that there's like, you know, 2 times as many females who are not being diagnosed, who need access to help and support, who aren't getting it. And that is a big issue. That's the biggest issue. It's not really like the labeling, it's the access to help and support. Because a lot of people say, well, do you need that diagnostic? Do you need that kind of label? Do you need that information? You know, and yes, you do at a certain level. If you're not wanting to get access or support or help, then okay, well, whatever, you know, you might not need a label. But if you're wanting to get access, support, correct access, correct support, maybe correct medication for certain things, you need to have that diagnostic criteria, and it has to be, you know, real. Like, it has to be like, you know, they can't just ignore the fact that there are X amount of females who are on the spectrum. So my thing is that we need to move forward with more like movement in the terms of like, we need more females putting content out and sharing their stories to help change how those medical professionals are kind of, how they've currently been ignoring them. And we also need to know that the medical professionals are going to update all the books and not look at old kind of rubbish that doesn't really make much sense anymore. They need to kind of get with the times and read new literature and do more studies, not rely on studies that were made in 1944. But, it's an interesting one. And if you think that this video is useful and helpful, please share it on Facebook and Twitter. That'd be super, super awesome. Okay, guys, if you enjoyed this video, please hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you next time, guys. Peace.